Exactly a year ago, I moved into my very first apartment by myself. I've been living alone for an entire year, so I thought we could get ready together and debrief how this past year has been. Before I had moved out of my parents' house and actually got an apartment on my own, I actually never thought I would live alone. I never saw that in the cards for myself. I always thought that if I would either be married by the time that I decided to move out, or if I wasn't married yet, that I would have roommates. I just never saw it as a possibility to get my own apartment by myself. Then when all of you wonderful people came into my life, you made it financially possible for me to live on my own. And I'm not saying you have to do social media to live on your own. Just at the age that I moved out and the type of job that I had at the time, there's no way I could afford it. Like, not a chance. So keep in mind, like, the way that I am now, I have not always been that way. Like, the whole loving to do things solo, traveling solo, honestly, even going to the movies solo, that was all stuff that I never used to do up until I think it was 2023 when I did my very first little solo date, which I was extremely nervous for, like extremely anxious to do anything alone. So I've definitely come a long way, but I'm sure many of you guys would never think that looking at my content now. But it's true. I was extremely nervous to do anything alone. That was another reason why I was like, I could never live by myself. Wouldn't like it. Like, I would get lonely. I would need like friends over constantly, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Once I started realizing that there was a very real possibility that I could afford to live on my own, I was like considering the idea for quite a while. And I was like, you know what? At that time, I was finally starting to take myself on solo dates and like doing things alone could I actually do this? Like, would I actually enjoy this? So I heavily started to consider it, and then I just decided to pull the trigger. Once I realized how much I genuinely loved my own company, it was game over. I was like, oh, this is tea. Like, this is so peaceful, so relaxing. Plus, I just knew the idea of a roommate was not in my cards, okay? Like, as much as I love all of my friends, the friends I had at the time and the friends I have now, like, living with somebody is a whole different ballgame. 80% of the time, honestly, probably even more, people who move in with friends, a lot of the time the friendships end up crashing and burning. There was no friends of mine at the time who were ready to move out. And if there was, I just knew that like I didn't want to risk a friendship and also risk my own sanity, their own sanity. Truthfully, I almost moved out of my parents' house a whole year, maybe even year and a half before I actually did, with roommates. We were touring apartments, trying to budget, see if it would work. And absolutely no tea, no shade at all. I'm so glad I didn't do that, because the truth of the matter is, like, especially as young adults, like, friendships change. And both of the people I was planning on moving out with, our friendship dynamic naturally ended up changing. And so I look back on it like, man, we would have all hated it if we moved in together, truthfully. I'm honestly really grateful I didn't do that. And so I ended up staying home for another year and a half. And when my social media was providing for me, I was like, all right, let's try this. Before I talk about how it's been living solo, let me just say, nobody prepared me for how emotional it was going to be to move out. Like, I mean, I guess if you're not super close to your parents or your family, like, it wouldn't be that difficult. For me, it was so difficult, like crying all the time. Like, the day that I actually like picked my apartment, I was sobbing, literally. I was so happy for the next stage of life and excited, but it felt like I was closing the chapter on my childhood. And I know that might sound a little dramatic to some people, but I'm extremely close to my parents. I'm also the youngest, so the very last to leave. I was leaving them to be empty nesters. I was really gonna miss them, and it felt like I was officially walking into like adulthood, like in a magnitude that I'd never had before. I was really sad to leave them. But like that scene out of Hannah Montana that's like, always knew this day would come. So anyway, long story short, I obviously moved out in May of last year. I was sad, but I was also excited, and I was a little nervous because I heard some people on social media saying how like they live alone and they get really lonely and how it's honestly really hard for them. And I was like, dang, am I gonna be lonely living by myself? Like, am I gonna regret this? Am I gonna wish I either stayed home or got a roommate? Like, what's the tea? They were also talking about how financially it's super stressful to live alone, and I will be so honest, I will not speak to the financial aspect because I completely recognize what a privilege it is to be able to do social media and it provide for me. So that is probably a 100% very valid concern, very valid stress if you live on your own and work like a normal job. When it comes to like the loneliness aspect though, I was really like kind of nervous for it. And listen, I would be so brutally honest with you guys and tell you all the truth, but the truth of the matter is I've been living alone for almost 13 months now. I haven't felt lonely a single time, like not one. I'm not saying my life's perfect. We obviously all go through things, but specifically loneliness, that feeling never came. And it very much could have been the fact that I hardcore prioritized my alone time for an entire year before I moved out. I was really wanting to learn how to love being alone and enjoy my own company, and I really took the time to do that. I also do frequently hang out with my friends and my family. Just having an in-person community of friends and family probably does help a ton. This is all circumstantial. Like, it really depends on your circumstances, your community you have around you, but that's just my truth. That's my honest experience. I've loved it. I've loved every second of it. Loved it so much to the point that I'm like, oh my gosh, one day I'm gonna be married with kids and I gotta live with other people. I do know that I just got approved for my next apartment, so I will be living alone for the next year and a half. Living alone has taught me so much about myself. I've genuinely fallen in love with my own company. I honestly feel like everyone should experience it once in their lives if they can. That's my 2 cents on solo living as a young adult. I 10 out of 10 recommend. I love you guys, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.